Have you ever noticed that the world can stay the same, yet you're suffering and double or disappear depending on what your mind is doing? Have you ever wondered why the biggest battles in life often happen in a place nobody else can see? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into a message that sounds almost too simple, like something you could dismiss in 1 second. But if you actually live it, it can reshape your entire destiny. The conclusion is subdue your own mind. Not subdue as in crush, not subdue as in pretend you do not feel, but subdue as in train. Tame, guide, and befriend the mind so it stops dragging you into pain that is optional. And I want you to carry to main ideas through this whole story. First, most of the suffering we experience is not only created by what happens, but by how the mind reacts, repeats, and clings to what happens. Second, the mind can be trained, not perfectly, not instantly, but steadily, so that wisdom, compassion, and clarity become your default more often than fear, anger, and confusion. Let us start with something you already know, even if you never put it into words. Two people can face the same situation and experience completely different worlds. One person gets criticized and collapses into shame for days. Another person gets criticized and learns, adjusts, and keeps their dignity. One person loses something and becomes bitter. Another person loses something and becomes tender. One person faces uncertainty and becomes paralyzed. Another person faces uncertainty and becomes focused on the next wise step. What is the difference? It is not intelligence. It is not luck. Often it is not even the size of the problem. It is the mind. The mind is the lens that turns events into meaning. The mind is the storyteller that labels a moment as tragedy, failure, insult, or opportunity. The mind is the amplifier that can turn a spark into a wildfire. So when a teaching says subdue your own mind, it is pointing to the most powerful lever you actually have in life. Because you cannot always control what happens around you, but you can learn to work with what happens inside you. And that is where freedom begins. Now let me tell this as a story, because if we keep this only as concepts, it stays at the surface. Imagine a person named Lena. Lena is not lazy. Lena is not careless. Lena tries. Lena wants to do well. Lena wants to be loved. Lena wants to feel safe. Lena wants the future to make sense. But Lena has a mind that never stops talking. In the morning it starts planning before Lena even gets out of bed. In school or work it constantly compares. At home it replays conversations. At night it predicts worst outcomes. Lena often feels tired even when nothing physically hard happened, because the mind has been running a marathon all day. At first Lena thinks, this is just personality. I am an anxious person. I am a sensitive person. I am a thinker. But then Lena begins to notice something. The mind is not only thinking, it is grabbing. It grabs praise and wants more. It grabs criticism and refuses to let go. It grabs fear and tries to solve the future with endless imagination. It grabs anger and builds arguments to prove Lena is right. It grabs sadness and turns it into a story that life will never improve. This grabbing is the hidden cause of so much pain. In Buddhist language, this grabbing is clinging. And clinging is like holding a burning coal because you think it will protect you. It does the opposite. It burns you. So Lena here's a teaching one day that feels like a shock. The conclusion is subdue your own mind. At first Lena feels insulted. Subdue my mind. What does that even mean? My mind is me. But then the teacher, says something that changes everything. Your mind is not your master. It is your tool. If the tool isn't trained, it causes harm. If the tool is trained, it serves wisdom. That is the turning point. Lena decides to test the idea, not as a belief, but as an experiment. The next time Lena feels stress rising, Lena does not immediately react. Lena pauses. Lena takes one breath. Lena notices the tight chest. Lena notices the fast thoughts. Lena names what is happening quietly. Worrying, angry, embarrassed, planning, whatever it is. This naming is not magic, but it creates space. And in that space, Lena realizes something. Thoughts keep appearing, but Lena does not have to obey them. Emotion is present, but Lena does not have to become it. The mind is loud, but Lena can step back and listen without being pushed off a cliff. This is the beginning of subduing the mind, not by violence, by awareness. Now let us go deeper, because subduing the mind is not only about feeling calmer. It is about transforming karma. Karma here means cause and effect in your life. When the mind isn't reined, it produces causes like these: instant reaction, harsh speech, avoidance, compulsive consumption, self-sabotage, comparison, resentment. And those causes produce predictable effects: conflict, regret, anxiety, loneliness, stagnation. So when you train the mind, you start planting different causes. Pause before speaking, breath before reacting, compassion before judgment, curiosity before blame, patience before quitting. And those causes produce different effects: better relationships, clearer choices, more resilience, less regret. So training the mind is not only spiritual, it is practical destiny building. Now imagine another scene. A person is driving and someone cuts them off. The body surges. He tries this. The mind starts screaming. They are disrespecting me. People are terrible. I want to punish them. The person grips the steering wheel. And for the next 10 minutes, their whole body is a storm. Now imagine a reined mind version. The same cutoff happens. The body still surges because biology is fast. But then awareness arrives. The person notices anger. The person breathes. The person relaxes the jaw. The person lets the thought pass. They do not chase revenge. They keep driving. Same event, different karma, different day, different health, different life. This is why subduing the mind matters. Because your life is not only the events that happen, your life is the way your mind repeatedly meets events. Now let us talk about what subduing the mind is not. Because misunderstandings can ruin the practice. It is not suppression. Suppression is when you pretend you are not angry while anger accumulates and later explodes. It is not denial. Denial is when you refuse to see pain and pretend everything is fine. It is not becoming emotionalness. Emotionalness is not peace. It is numbness. Subduing the mind means you learn to hold emotions with awareness so they move through you without turning into harmful action. It means you learn to distinguish the feeling from the story. A feeling can be true as a feeling, but the story the mind builds around it is often exaggerated, distorted, or unnecessary. For example, you feel embarrassment. That feeling is real, but the story "I am worthless, everyone hates me, my life is over" is not truth. It is the mind running wild. Subduing the mind means you do not let the mind run wild and call it reality. Now let me expand this into a longer narrative, because the mind is not subdued in one heroic moment. It is subdued in ordinary moments repeated. Lena begins practicing in small situations. A message does not get answered. The mind says they are ignoring you. Lena notices the story. Lena breathes. Lena chooses not to send a desperate follow-up. Lena waits. Later, Lena realizes the person was busy. I hold drama was avoided. A teacher gives feedback. The mind says you failed. Lena feels the sting. Lena breathes. Lena separates self-worth from performance. Lena asks, what can I improve? Lena improves. A friend acts scold. The mind wants to attack or withdraw forever. Lena pauses. Lena asks a calm question. Turns out the friend had a rough day. Connection is repaired. At home, a parent says something harsh. Lena feels anger and hurt. Lena breathes. Lena decides to talk later when calm. Lena sets a boundary with less poison. The conversation is still hard, but it is not a battlefield. These are small wins, but small wins become a new identity. And this is the key. Your mind becomes what it practices. If it practices panic, it becomes a panic mind. If it practices blame, it becomes a blame mind. If it practices compassion, it becomes a compassionate mind. If it practices returning, it becomes a returning mind. Returning is the essence of training. You notice you got pulled away, and you return again and again, not with self-hate, with patience. This is how you subdue the mind. Now let us talk about why this teaching is called the conclusion in the first place. Because if you study many spiritual teachings, many philosophies, many life lessons, they often come back to one central point. If you want peace, train the mind. If you want wisdom, train the mind. If you want to stop harming others, train the mind. If you want to stop harming yourself, train the mind. Because the mind is where every action begins. Speech begins as a thought. Anger begins as a thought. Greed begins as a thought. Fear begins as a thought. And compassion also begins as a thought. So when you work at the level of the mind, you work at the root. Now let us connect this to compassion more directly, because a subdued mind naturally becomes kinder. When your mind is not constantly defending ego, you can listen. When your mind is not constantly comparing, you can appreciate others. When your mind is not constantly craving, you can be generous. When your mind is not constantly afraid, you can be brave. A lot of cruelty is not born from evil. It is born from an untrained mind under stress. So subduing the mind is a form of protecting the world. It reduces the harm you might spread when you are triggered. It makes you safer to be around. It makes you someone who can hold others' pain without panicking. That is compassion in action. Now let us talk about practice. Because practice is how you get from understanding to transformation. Practice can be very simple. It can begin with breath, not as a fancy ritual, but as a reset button. When you feel the mind speeding up, you lengthen the exhale. The exhale signals safety. Safety allows the thinking brain to come back online. Then you can choose. Another practice is labeling. You silently label what is happening: thinking, worrying, comparing, judging, planning, remembering. When you label, you stop merging with it. You become the witness, not the prisoner. Another practice is the pause before speech. You do not speak at the peak of emotion. You breathe first, then you speak from clarity. This practice alone can save relationships. Another practice is checking intention. Before you act, ask, what is my intention? Am I trying to help? Or am I trying to win? Am I trying to understand? Or am I trying to punish? This reveals the mind. And when you see the mind, you can train it. Now let us go even deeper, because there is a spiritual dimension here that is easy to miss. When you watch the mind closely, you start noticing something surprising. Thoughts appear by themselves. You did not schedule them. You did not invite them. They arise and pass. This reveals that the mind is not a soul itself. It is a flow of conditions. And if it is a flow, it can be guided. This is where awakening begins. Awakening is not a special personality. Awakening is recognizing that you do not have to be hypnotized by mental events. You can live from awareness rather than from compulsive thought. So subduing the mind is not only about being calmer, it is about waking up. Now I want to address the moment when people say, "But my mind is too strong." This is a common despair voice. It says, "I tried and failed, so I will never change." But that voice is also a thought, and it is often a thought that appears when the mind is learning, because the mind wants to protect its old habits. Training feels uncomfortable at first, because you are no longer letting the mind do whatever it wants. The mind protests. It says, "This is pointless." It says, "You are failing." It says, "Why bother?" But if you keep practicing gently, the mind learns, not overnight, but gradually, and then you realize something that feels like a quiet miracle. You can catch the storm earlier. You can recover faster. You can apologize sooner. You can forgive more easily. You can suffer less unnecessarily. This is the fruit of practice. Now let us connect to impermanence, because impermanence is both the challenge and the hope. The challenge is that everything changes, so you cannot control life perfectly. The hope is that everything changes, so your mind can change too. Your habits are not destiny, they are patterns. Patterns can be reshaped, so the conclusion, "Subdue your own mind," is actually a message of hope. It says you are not doomed to repeat the same suffering. You can learn. You can train. You can become wiser. Now let me close with a reflection that many viewers will feel. Most people spend years trying to fix life from the outside. If I change my grades, then I will be okay. If I change my relationship, then I will be okay. If I change my body, then I will be okay. If I change my status, then I will be okay. But even when those outer things improve, the mind can still suffer, because the mind carries its habits into every new situation. So the deepest upgrade is not only in your circumstances, it is in your relationship with the mind. If you can subdue the mind, you can walk through both good and bad times with more dignity. You can enjoy without clinging. You can lose without collapsing. You can be criticized without being destroyed. You can be praised without becoming addicted. You can face uncertainty without panic. You can love without controlling. This is real freedom, and it is available one breath at a time. So here is the invitation as we end. The next time you feel the mind starting to run, do not fight it. Notice it, breathe, soften, return, and ask, what is the next wise step? That is how you subdue the mind. That is how you build karma that leads to peace. That is how you turn suffering into practice. That is how you transform your destiny. Thank you for being here with me today. Share in the comments what situation triggers your mind the most and what helps you come back to center. And if you want more videos like this, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment so this community can keep growing in wisdom, compassion, and practice. I will see you in the next one.